Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our show From Fear to Fearless. This show is all about sharing stories of ordinary people who have done and continue to do some extraordinary things despite their fear. Fear is a normal part of growth and change, but uh, for many of us, especially for children, fear becomes a factor, and we have all have hard time pushing past our fear. So our mission of this show is to share stories of others who have pushed past their fear and have done some amazing things. So today I have a special guest. His name is Steve McAllister, right? Is that right?
Yeah,
Lester?
mhm.
Awesome.
You did
Welcome,
a great
Steve.
job.
Thank you so much for being here today.
You're
And
very
I
welcome.
Yes, I wanted to introduce you. So tell me, what have you been doing in your past 10, 20 years? What kind of work do you do and how do you serve others?
Well, actually, I'm an ordained minister, and so I've been actually working with kids and youth for the last 25 years, and it's been a real challenge at times, obviously, because they're youth and kids. But with the fear comes even, I've heard it say that you can be a fearful person standing up before a lot of people, and it's good to be nervous. They say, knocking knees behind. That's why a lot of pastors stand behind a pulpit, is because of the knocking knees. But it's been a real challenge, but it's been real fun. And then I would say it's been more than 20 years ago, but I was in the Navy.
Hmm.
Um, so I was able to serve my country for just a little bit, but I really enjoyed doing that. And I served in the kids department there at the church where I went to church at. So that really helped out a lot too by pushing past my fear there, because the fear of being in the military, and then all of a sudden on Sunday you're in a real positive spot, and so that I overcame fear that way.
Hmm.
So, but the real fear came from when I was a little kid, um, being growing up with being a bull or being bullied, and so that was the biggest fear, was the being bullied part.
Yes,
And
that's
even
the
into my teenage years, and even into almost my young adult, even when Rachel and I got married, my wife had to put up with my dad saying and doing things, and she just was really upset about it. And so but I now challenge kids and teenagers. I don't challenge them. I talk to them and I say, you know what? Being bullied is only somebody just being jealous of who you are and what you're doing, and you don't want to lead them into getting aggravated to physically fight you, but that's who they are. They're either they've got the problem that they've had all their life, or they're just jealous of what you're going through, and that's why they figure they see a target on your back about being a weak person, and they thrive. They're hungry for a person less than them so that they can bully them.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, you when I asked you what should the title for the show be, you said, silver lining.
Right.
So tell me why you chose that title. What's the meaning for you?
Well, as you know, I wrote a book, or wrote a chapter, a collaboration book with Action Takers, and my friend Missy Lane, she had a really rough time herself, and it was really interesting. The show that I had on Axe Radio for a long time was Silver Lining, and I didn't think about it, but when Missy was talking about her situation, she said, Behind every cloud that I went through, I saw a silver lining."
Mm.
So she went through a lot of things herself. So did I. So she saw a silver lining, and I thought, that really connected with what I was already doing. And I'm doing the same thing you're doing, where I connect with people that have had issues, that have went from rags to riches, or they've in a sense that they've had a rough life medically, physically, whatever, and then now they're doing quite well for themselves. And so I said, I end my book by saying, behind every dark cloud, there's a silver lining. Go find yours.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
that's where the silver lining idea came from.
Nice, beautiful, beautiful. So let me go back a little further back, Steve. Thank you for telling us about your background, and thank you for serving the country as well and helping kids and families. So you said you had three types of bullying that has happened for you in the past, right? So tell
Right.
me a little bit about these different bullies that are out there, because sometimes kids, as you know, this show is for parents, and we share stories here who have overcome, significant challenges like you have, right? So,
Hmm.
um, what are the three types of bullies, and tell me a little bit, and then we can keep going into a little bit
Well,
more
there's
details.
bullying now because of the internet. There's cyberbullying, which the kids get on their internet and they figure, well, they can get on the internet and pose a threat to somebody on the internet. And there's physical bullying where they just constantly pick on you physically, and that's what happened to me. The internet wasn't around when I first got bullied, but there's physical bullying, there's the cyberbullying, and then there's I think I was trying to remember the third one.
But for you, three type of bullying happened to you, right? Let's start from there, and then we'll come back to this later. So
Okay.
you remember, like, three different type of people have bullied you in your life, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
let's talk about that.
the kids at church, my dad, and the school, the church,
And your dad.
and the neighbor. Huh?
And your dad.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so
Hmm.
let's talk about dad, because a lot of the time we, don't think of bullying going associated with dad or mom, right? But you
Right.
experience significant, you know, damage from your
Mhm.
dad. So let's give us some, like, what was life like going through that for you?
It was I could do no right. It was things were going wrong, such as mowing the lawn. He too was in the army, but he was a real stickler. He wasn't. I thought he was a perfectionist, but when it came to mowing the lawn, we had dry lawn, and it sometimes there would be a track. You could see where the tracks of the lawnmower was. Well, if it was off kilter or if it was wiggly, he'd say, it just makes the yard look bad when you see a bunch of tracks. And he would exaggerate and say it's way off in left field or way. It wasn't. It was just a little off, but he exaggerated a lot, and he would make fun of the way that I would. Also, when I was a baby, my mouth would draw open a lot, and he would say, "Huh? What?" That type of thing. But he was constantly making fun of me because of the way I would drool because of seizures that I had due to the fact of pseudo seizures, due to the fact I was stressed from that. But that's just the way he treated me as a kid. Now, he tried to make up for it by once in a while being nice to me and everything, but behind all that being nice, I knew that he had a plan of doing something. Or he would say, "Well, if you don't do this right, I'll have you cut the lawn by using scissors." And he actually had me not doing the lawn, but he actually had using scissors to cut around posts and that, and he knew how long that was going to take. And he said, I didn't care if it was till dark and you had to use a flashlight. That's the way it was his way. It wasn't grounding. It was just his way of being bullying me and telling me how horrible person I was. And so, and then um, there was, do you want me to talk about the lawnmower blade thing?
A little bit, sometimes
Yeah,
kids
I
might
won't
be
go into
listening.
detail,
Yeah.
but I'll just say that he used a lawnmower blade to discipline me, and it wasn't right. It turned into a more of a physical abuse situation, and things didn't turn out at all the way it should have. But I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I want to ask
Um,
you, so during this time, what are you feeling? Like, what do you tell yourself?
I mean, at the time,
At the time,
I,
what were you telling
I'm a
yourself?
failure. I'm not doing anything right, and
Yeah.
so I would try. See, you'd think that you go to your mom and dad if you had problems at school, and I
Yeah.
did. I went to my mom a lot because my dad just shrugged his shoulders and he would say, fight back, fight back, fight back. There was no talking. But my mom would say, well, I'll pray about it and you pray about it too. but the fear that I had was the fear of going to school and thinking that at recess time or going to school, coming home from school, that I would get beat up, and that's all I thought about. And I wet the bed until I was in the sixth grade.
Because of the fear.
And yep, and so and it was a fear of me wetting the bed and getting in trouble.
That too. Then it
Hmm.
escalates to that
So
as well.
there was fear, and then there was extreme fear, where I was extremely, it was like I was afraid that if I went to bed at night, I wouldn't wake up in time and I'd wet the bed, and then I'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, the plain old, it was just plain old fear at times. I think the extreme fear came from my dad,
The most bullying
about my dad.
happened. Yeah.
Right,
Bullying happened at home for you than outside
right.
the fear. So
So
tell me, how did you overcome, like, how did you become the person you are today?
um, I will tell you that a friend of mine who, my mom and dad went to Florida a lot with this couple, and they had a growing son, and he was into science and he was into puppetry. Well, he introduced me to puppetry. And so, by the way, I'm still doing that today a little bit, but he introduced me to puppetry, and um, that we went to different places. And and then he also did creation science, meaning he did science experiments for kids. So between the puppets and doing creation science on Saturdays, he pulled me away from that because he knew my dad, the way my dad was treating me. So he pulled me away from all that to have a good day. And I knew that if I escaped somehow from him, that I would have a good day, good week, whatever. And so that's what I kind of did. I started getting into puppetry. Sorry, there it goes.
Mm.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what kept me sane,
Mm.
is going and doing all that stuff with my friend Mark. And then I had a couple buddies that I ran with in high school that I escaped with them. And that's what I mean. Going back home felt like I was going back to prison. I
Mm.
felt like I had a day pass, but then going back to prison and going through all that again. So that's the way I felt. My poor mom, she prayed. She would always be in the bathroom with the door shut praying, and I would always try to escape with her when she went to the grocery store. I didn't want to be around my dad.
Mm.
And nope, 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 you're not going anywhere. You're going to stay here and do chores. So,
Mm.
but that's why I always felt like I needed to just escape.
Yeah.
And that's how I dealt with my fear.
So now that you have overcome the fear and you have probably forgiven a lot of people, right? In order to move
Right.
on, you have to
Before
forgive.
he passed, I did, on his deathbed, I told him, I said, I'm sorry for anything that I've caused, but I forgive you the way you treated me. And of course, he had dementia, so he didn't really know anything about that and stuff. So, but I
Yeah,
felt good. My
it's
family
for you.
heard, my family heard, my mom heard. So that was important.
Yeah, it was for you more than him because
Right.
he's the abuser. He doesn't really deserve that much, but it's for you to
Yeah. As
close
much
off
as
with.
abuse as I went through with him, even my friends today, they're like, I don't know how you lived with him. And a lot of them, some of them are still upset the way that he treated them as well as myself. But
Mm.
they understand now that the way I forgave him, and they said, well, that's good.
Mm.
So,
So, Steve, now that you have taken this and you want to do some work around this, right? You want to, because you were earlier saying to me that cyberbullying. So tell me about your desire to, use what you have gone through and help others.
I want to be able, now that I've, thanks to the ladies at Action Takers, I was able to come through and bust through and write a chapter in a book, and that's really helped others. Now, I will tell you that I've heard statements back from people that have read my chapter about what happened to me, and
Mm.
they said you were an inspiration, and it educated us and how to look for. Actually, I gave them points, and I didn't even know I did, but I gave them pointers on how to deal with their children when they get bullied.
Mm.
So, but what I want to do is I'm planning on doing a show I told you about silver linings, and kind of tell people that they need to look at the positive on everything and say, you know what, you went through this, or if you're going through this, look for this and look for that. But I want to be able to go to do live speaking engagements and be able to talk to them, talk to the audience about how to overcome their fears and to educate them as best as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So, what would you tell your younger self, about fear?
We're all going to go through fear at one point or another. Pray, ask God to take away that fear, and get some help if you need to talk to somebody. Always talk to somebody. But I would tell my younger self to just pray and ask God to protect you. That's the biggest thing.
Absolutely. And you said that you have some advice for parents, because this is for parents, the show, right? What would you
Right.
give them as a strategy or an advice when their kids, or they find out or they notice there's a behavior change, that their kids are getting bullied by someone in the house or outside the house at school? What would you tell them as a strategy?
Well, it depends on how bullying was bullying. It doesn't matter whether it's cyberbullying, but if they're in front of the internet and they know that they're getting cyberbullied, you don't have to really look over their shoulder, but just keep an eye on what's going on with their children's websites, making sure that they're not being hassled, or tell the kids that tell your kids that anytime that they look sad, they feel sad, you know that you can come to them at any time and tell them what's going on, and they're going to be there to support them. Be their be their support system. And if they can't do anything, then they need to get to a pastor or a professional that can help come in and be able to talk to both parents and the kids, because obviously, if that's what the psychologist or psychiatrist specializes in, they're going to help the parents. But that's just some of the best advice that I could give. And the strategy is to um, just be the support system and have them work something out, or give them um, some sort of sign if they know something's going on, so that they can talk to them.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add to the parents who are listening? Share some. How does a parent can find out if their kid is bullying? Because a lot of the time, kids don't talk about it, right? Because they feel like
Right.
it's their fault. Did that happen to you? You tried to keep it to yourself when you were young. If you get
I
bullied,
kept my mouth shut. My mom always told me, "Don't say anything. Don't say anything to your
oh,
dad." And I kept quiet for the longest time, and that bugged me. But I thought, for the sake of my mom and having the sake of I just kept my mouth shut. But
mm,
that's when you keep your mouth shut, you're holding in the fear of yourself, and you're in your body. Sometimes you stress it out, and your body will just shut down on you. And so you've got to let the parents. You have to be. You have to watch out for signs, and if the behavior is different, not erratic, but they're sad,
change.
or like,
It's
huh?
change, right? If there was a
Right,
change.
change. They lash out. They change. Their behavior changes. Um, those are signs that you need to keep an eye on. Um, that's probably the biggest thing, because keeping an eye on your children and finding out, because kids have a weird way sometimes of showing their emotions, especially if they're upset. They want to keep it in, but they shouldn't. So parents need to keep an eye on their behavior change. That's that's a big thing.
Absolutely. Yes. So thank you so much, Steve. This is an absolute pleasure. And I have one more question.
Sure.
How has writing that chapter helped you in your healing?
To be more bold about talking to people about being bullied, because I remember I kept my mouth shut the whole a lot, And now that I've written that chapter, it was able for me to open up a door to be able to talk to others and step out of that fear zone and out of that comfort zone. And, you know, the other thing that I was afraid of is because my sisters, I thought, oh man, what are they going to say? Well, when I
Mm,
told them before I wrote the book or while I was writing the chapter, they said, if it's going to help others and educate others, we're all for it. They supported me all the way and they're very happy. So, and that's, but I didn't want just their support. I just wanted to let people know that what I went through and maybe I can help out in some way by writing that chapter. And I've already started helping people out already.
that's awesome. That's what it's for, right? And you have a program in mind that where
Yeah,
you want to, implement within the school system and in the church, so
right.
that you can spread the word of bullying and do some workshops. And tell
Mhm.
me a little bit about that workshop. It's unique. You have a unique angle to it.
Um, I think I'm going to break down the workshop. It's mostly speaking engagement, but if it was a workshop, it would be giving pointers on education. Go be able to go on the internet and find help. Give them bullet points of what they can do, where they can go and get educated. So that's what would be part of the workshop, and then maybe have somebody that I know that had been bullied, but besides myself, come in and give their testimony and tell them how they overcame it, how they
Mm.
overcame being bullied, because it might be different than me.
Yeah, there's so many different ways. Yeah, and people, and also, how you process the bullying is different. One person processes differently than the other, right? Like,
Right. And they do. And that's okay. And I tell them, however, however you think that this bullying is going to help you to help others, you don't have to copy what I'm doing. Do what you know is best for you and what works for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve, for coming in today. I had an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and thank
You're
you for
welcome.
sharing how, his messages. When your child's behavior changes, make sure to notice it and ask them what's going on, because a lot of the time it's through those conversations that you're going to find out, because the kids are not going to automatically come and just say, I'm getting bullied, somebody's hitting on me, hating on me, right? They're not going to say it, because sometimes we feel as if it's our fault, because I was bullied too. I felt like, it was my fault. And if I say it, I look like I'm tattletelling, or all these things that
Hmm.
our little brains make up stories, right? That,
Right.
validates what I'm
Exactly.
thinking. So if that's the biggest thing, is I think behavior change is the number one thing that you'll notice as parents. So pay attention to that. And thank you again, Steve, for sharing your story. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So next week we'll meet again at 11 a.m. PST, Wednesday. That's when we go live again. Thank you for being here. And if you're interested in making learning easy for your child, please book a call at learningsuccessacademy.com. So that is learningsuccessacademy.com. You can book a call with one of our certified learning success coaches. And currently, because the school year is starting, we have a special promotion for all the parents, where we are giving a free assessment before your kid starts in the school system again. Free assessment that's a value of $400. We are giving as a gift to anyone who signs up in the next few weeks. So take an advantage of that as well. Until next time, see what's on the other side of fear. And let's ignite and inspire our children to push past their fear and make fear not a factor for them. So thank you for being here, and I'll see you next week.